Brokeback Mountain, a short story written by American author Annie Proulx in October of 1997, is a romantic drama about two young men who meet in Wyoming in 1963. They ignite in a sudden emotional, confusing, and sexual attachment that eventually takes the shape of a very secretive relationship. As time passes and their separate lives carry on, the uncertainty of the relationship's legitimacy is heightened when the two meet occasionally on camping trips. In this, they battle the decision to confirm the legitimacy of their relationship, fearing the region's reactions, and therefore continue to unsuccessfully realize the true meaning of their relationship. In addition to the well-known story, a movie was also produced in 2005. As expected, the movie, as well as the story, received heavy criticism. A theater in Utah pulled the film from its showing listings just hours before its release, simply because it dealt with same-sex marriages. However, the author was well aware of the controversies and dangerous mindsets that were present in Wyoming at the time.
Very conscious that Wyoming people are violent homophobes to the point of death and destruction.
It asks us to view Brokeback Mountain through the scope of same-sex acceptance, how it is molded through past society's arrogance and tunnel vision views of homosexuality in the 60s, and how it has changed through the wider views of today's society. The United States of the 60s was a time of fear and arrogance toward the gay population. Fear sprung from society's misunderstanding of the gay population and the fact that people always are afraid of what they don't understand. The arrogance sprung from the refusal to acknowledge the acceptance the gay population deserved, as well as the academic reports produced at the time, which denounced the fact that homosexuality was a mental illness. These attitudes and behaviors greatly contributed to the lack of acceptance that the gay population experienced during this time. Politically, many states had laws stating that consensual gay sex could be considered sexual assault. In addition, President Eisenhower at the time signed Executive Order 10450 in 1953, making it legal to conduct investigations of persons suspected of sexual perversions, and this included homosexuality. It is also said that this order gave the indirect right for police to conduct raids on gay bars and participate in gay bashings, in which homosexuals were beaten close to death after these raids. To combat and protest these raids and discriminations, gay rights groups formed, which included the Daughters of Bilitis and the Mattachine Society. Both of these groups advocated for gay rights and for equality. These groups were formed in the early 50s, the Mattachine Society being the first, as it was formed in 1950. As well as a very significant scientific report by Alfred Kingsley on human sexuality. The key to his report was his explanation that homosexuality was not abnormal or worthy of being called a mental illness. The American Psychiatric Association had listed homosexuality as a mental illness prior to this time. Because of this listing, homosexuality was viewed greatly as a clinical condition. Therefore, society needed justification, usually medically, for the reason why one would be gay. In this, society of the 1960s seemed to view same-sex relationships as a type of corrupt sexual practice, ignoring and not acknowledging the emotional perspective of the relationship. So as we look at the 60s, in terms of the same-sex acceptance, we see a time at which society did not view the relationships as relationships at all. And because of this, heavily discriminated against this minority through the use of politics, corrupt law enforcement, and medical rationalization. As we fast forward into the 21st century and modern-day society, we see a dramatic change in the level of acceptance toward the gay population, as well as a dramatic shift in the mindsets toward same-sex relationships. If the film Brokeback Mountain, which was released in 2005, was released in the 60s, specifically in the West, one could expect that pure chaos would erupt, characterized by protests and possible raids simply because it deals with same-sex relationships. Although there was controversy when released, the actor Jake Gyllenhaal describes modern-day's views on the film in general.
Be really secure about yourself to do a movie about two gay men in love and then not worry about being typecast. I'm sure when you first read this script, that must have crossed your mind.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
I
heard that it was the gay cowboy movie, and I really didn't want to have anything to do with it. I was 16 years old at the time.
Really?
Yeah. So it had been around, the script had been around for years. So when I finally heard Ang Lee was going to do it, I read the script, and it was really the most beautiful story I'd ever read, love story, and I couldn't not do it, and it didn't really cross my mind at all.
And you, Heath?
That the story and the relationship should be viewed as simply a love story about two lovers, regardless of gender, and the journey they endure with this love. This statement by the actor is a great example of how today's society sees a same-sex relationship as a relationship first, laying down a foundation on which the sustenance of the relationship, the emotion, the behavior, the happiness, can further be investigated. This notion that same-sex relationships are indeed recognized as true relationships is evident in the passage of same-sex marriage in many states in the past years. One of the main arguments for the passage of this legislation was that love, regardless of gender, deserves to be recognized equally, and therefore should be treated equally, thereby further emphasizing the fact that today's society recognized these relationships as true relationships. Further support for this legislation and activism for similar legislation is greatly expressed in current gay rights activist groups and organizations in the United States. These groups participate in numerous marches, parades, and protests around major cities in the United States. Some prominent groups include LGBT and the Gay Alliance. In addition, the group Straight for Gay Rights is a group of heterosexuals that advocate for gay rights. This group is a prime example to illustrate the fact that same-sex acceptance has spread to a level at which heterosexuals advocate for gay rights. Further support for the acceptance of gay rights is evident in the repeal of the policy Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which essentially kept homosexual military personnel living secretive lives. Although this policy was a relief compared to previous policies, which discharged military personnel when their homosexuality was disclosed, it still was a restrictive action on the lives of the gay population. The repeal and acknowledgement that the gay population is equal to the rest of the society was a welcomed event to the military. Increased freedoms obtained by the growing gay population are a result of society's growing view of equality. This idea that regardless of sexual practices, love is the intense collection of emotions and feelings for another person, also independent of gender, and should be treated equally. So as we look at Brokeback Mountain through the lens that Annie Proulx has given us, we see that as time progressed, the acceptance of same-sex relationships has also increased due to the increased understanding of what it means to be a relationship at its most basic level.